is my studio. I'm graphic designer, communication designer, and I work together with a couple of people, but mostly with Ruller, who is my husband, but also colleague, and we founded the Rodina together. The Rodina means family in my mother tongue, which is in Czech language. Yeah, it means a family, and at that time when we were founding the studio and also becoming ourselves so much in love, we thought family is the closest, smallest unit of two persons being in love together. So we thought this is our space that we are creating. Yeah. It's intense, but I'm an adventurer, so I really like that. I like intensity of life, and I really love to have this constant conversation with my loved one, in this case with Vit. So together we can always debate about our projects and make them better or delete them in the middle of the night. So it's more collaborative. We always work together on things. It's somehow inseparable, so we really need each other in this process. More maybe because we are so different, so we also need to hear each other's different opinions on things. So this is in constant development. We have different opinions on designing things and thinking through making when we are creating projects or working for clients. And this makes it so lively, maybe, I would say, that we are in constant visual debate as well. So there is sometimes this ping pong that you mentioned, send each other files or share them, but also endless hours of sitting next to each other and really pointing at the screen and moving things together. No, we don't, because we have this, we have amount of memories, storage, so we can really rename the dates of projects, so you can come back to the older version that you've touched, right? Even though it's kind of deleted in the new version, but we work together on these versions. But the difference would be, as you asked, that there are certain skill sets that we need to make our projects finished, for example, coding and interactive stuff, which I'm not that great at making these things. I know I can make a lot of decisions and I understand a lot of user experiences and interaction, but when it goes for real back-end coding, Vit is the master of that, I would say. Right? Do you agree? No? Because these projects or the visuals that we are creating, they're somehow traveling. So if you create a poster and it becomes then a website and it becomes an animation, a film or a movie, and then it becomes something else and a performance maybe, and then it inspires us to create a workshop. So it's kind of in a cycle of life itself, this project. So it's really informing each other and developing and evolving. So we like that. But maybe for the not aesthetics, but that you mentioned this kind of distracted feeling of the visual of it. That's maybe because we're interested in also how the tools that we are using are kind of being deployed in that process or utilized. So we like to decompose some things, or we like to look at how the 3D software might just see us when it scans us. So we really like to look at these things from the other side. We really like to embrace the playfulness, but also this instant curiosity that we have. And subversion is a big part of it, because we can, through creating projects, we can also comment on certain things that we think about, or kind of insert partly our opinions into that. But as we usually work with culture clients, this comes together as a debate with curators or with these art institutions. So it contains their message, what they need to say, but also what developed when we were in contact together. We are always focused on the work. It's the most precious thing, and we are really hobbyists. We really love designing. We are there. We love to do it, to make it. This creation is really interesting. The most difficult part to overcome is really how you start this process, like the beginnings, this empty, when you open any software that you like for designing, this empty board, that's the scariest place, and you need to touch it with the first dot or something, and that's always the most scary part for us, I guess. But then when it starts, we really love that, and it doesn't matter. It's really all about what we're doing with the client. And as it's usually for culture and exhibitions, we can always find something very interesting and also challenging in that. It's always like something new and usually brings amazing topics. Like sometimes you want to change or develop the project a bit differently, and you might be expected that you will use the similar things as for previous clients, like some 3D landscapes, or that as I did some performative design and performances where my body is part of it, then they expect, oh, Tereza, are you gonna be in it? And I say, no, it's different. Like, you don't need me performing there. It's a completely different project. So that's sometimes difficult to explain, but we usually have a good debate and dialogue with the client, so they understand it. I guess this started in my childhood almost, because my parents, they're close to theater, but also art, and specifically conceptual performance art. And as a young teenager, I was all the time surrounded by the scene, the art scene, and I went to study art. And I was really bad artist, I would say. I was all the time trying to communicate, and this communication was something big for me. And I didn't know at that time that there is graphic design, which is all about communication. No one told me. And then I realized later on that there's this whole amazing discipline. But embedding my body and working with my identity was a great starting point, how to kind of disassemble these boundaries of art and design and really insert what I knew from my studies about performance art into graphic design. And that's why I call it performative design, that you have action, you have living bodies in it, or be it 3D avatars, there is this live action, and you work with elements of chance. So there's great opportunities that the project is really changing, and it's all about process and inner transformation. And when you start working also with other people, so you have more bodies in it, not just yourself, then it's quite interesting how people consider this participation, how they take over, how they change this process. And that's what I really love to do. That's a great question. Maybe first, but by trying not to use it. It's really addictive, huh? So, of course, doing that performative piece or those pieces was about critical studies of how our identities and ourselves, how we work for free for this platform capitalism, for this industry that, you know, makes tons of money on our work, that we are putting images online, we are creating and consuming millions of images, especially as designers, and giving that work for free to these social platforms. So I'm rather critical there, and it's so addictive. I wouldn't tell my baby now to use it, but I have still time. It's a small baby. So yeah, it's somehow you feel with students that certain topics and themes, especially about the crises that are ongoing in the world, I mean social, ecological, and sometimes critiquing even culture, that is something that they want to talk about. And it usually comes with also some topics that we work in for some exhibitions. So we can have debates, and definitely like our knowledge can be shared there, be it different workshops. But what I also enjoy is to teach regularly, so I can meet my students every week and we can really develop something bigger than a 2 days long workshop. So it's really nice to be part of their process and just be around. And I don't want to say help, because I think education, it's not like helping, but it's more like facilitating safe space for young creatives to grow and to become themselves, really. I went through different educational systems, so I had this more like German system of studying with one professor, you know, so that was like a big authority that you follow or don't follow. And also in Dutch education, it was so different. There were like many different designers, practitioners, and theoreticians coming in. I would say I teach completely differently myself, and it's not that much connected with the Rodina practice, but I would say more with the pedagogical course that I had, because there I realized this teaching is not that much about me showing my personal projects to students, but it's really about being there for them and listening to them basically, and just like adding a few interesting sources to sparkle up, when they need to have some inspiration. But that's it. So I teach differently than I was educated. No, it's great. That's why we decided to start the studio and move to Netherlands to get educated, and then we realized we want to stay here, because first of all, it was one of the countries that were very interesting in what's happening in the design scene, and at that time we really wanted to be there where things are happening. We didn't want it to scroll, some blogs, and at that time it was on Instagram, but like look at events and feel this FOMO of missing out everything that is happening here. We wanted to be in the scene. So Netherlands are great for it. I really think it's one of the best design countries you could be at, and work in Amsterdam is just amazing. And this second point that you mentioned, that's like kind of futuristic or being always like ahead a little bit in the scene here, I think it's because it's connected with this belief that, and that I learned only in Netherlands, it's just like fake it until you make it. So you really think about what the future might be, or you even speculate about the future. You don't have to be there, but you're kind of working towards it. So even you don't know how to achieve it, you will still like kind of believe in it, or